All right, let's get started. My name is Brian Manning. I'm the Communications Manager here at Circle Surrogacy. Thanks for joining us. It's my pleasure to introduce Jenny Denoff, who is one of our Surrogate Outreach Coordinators here at Circle.
Thanks, Brian. We want to begin by welcoming you and thanking you for taking the time to join us today for this webinar. We're really happy you're here. Like Brian said, my name is Jenny. Let me see if I can get to the next slide here. There we go. I'm Jenny, and I'll be presenting the first half of our presentation today, and then we'll turn it over to Sarah, who will present the second half for us. I wanted to begin by saying that both Sarah and I are experienced surrogates, and as outreach coordinators, we'll be the ones who will be welcoming you to our program, and we will also work with you in the beginning stages of your journey by assisting you with the initial paperwork that's involved with getting started with this process. This slide provides you with a list of the things that we'll be covering today, including the different types of surrogacy, some of the initial requirements for becoming a surrogate, some thoughts on the benefits and reasons for becoming a surrogate, information about the application process, what the next steps are once your application is approved, and finally some thoughts on why Circle is the right agency for you. Before we begin, I wanted to take a moment and point out that you're free to listen to this webinar either by using your computer speakers, or if you'd like, you can call in to hear the presentation as well. We won't be able to hear you. You're on mute, but we do hope that you'll present us with your questions by typing them in the box found on the right-hand side of your screen, and it should have a questions tab there for you to be able to enter those. We will make sure to address all of your questions at the end of our presentation. This webinar is being recorded, and we will email you a copy so that you can refer back to it for the information provided. What is surrogacy? There are two types of surrogacy. Traditional surrogacy is a less common form of surrogacy. Traditional surrogate uses her own egg and therefore has a biological connection to the baby she is carrying. As a Circle surrogate, you will be a gestational surrogate, which is far more common. Gestational surrogates undergo the IVF process and become pregnant with a baby that has no biological connection to her. And again, as a Circle surrogate, this is the type of carrier you would be. Occasionally, you may hear about a surrogate who carries a baby and receives no compensation for doing so. This is uncompensated or altruistic surrogacy. As a Circle surrogate, you will be compensated. Sarah will discuss compensation a little further into our presentation. Some of the basic requirements for becoming a surrogate are that you're between the ages of 21 and 40 and have previously had at least one child of your own, that your most recent pregnancy occurred within the last 7 years, that you're not receiving certain types of government assistance such as cash assistance or Section 8 housing. However, we are one of the few agencies who is able to accept some applicants who might be receiving WIC, food stamps, or Medicaid. Your BMI must be below 32, and if you're unsure what your BMI is, there are lots of BMI calculators you can find online to determine what your current BMI is. There are several states that aren't surrogate friendly. Unfortunately, we're not able to work with surrogates who live in these states. To give you an idea, some of these states are New York, New Jersey, Washington State, Michigan, and Nebraska. We like to ask that you have a strong support system that includes family and friends who will not only be able and willing to help you out during this process, but also to be able to help out with your children if needed. You cannot have a history of drug or alcohol abuse, and you must be completely tobacco-free for a minimum of 12 months before your application can be accepted. We also require that you have never previously smoked during one of your previous pregnancies. And finally, no more than 3 previous C-sections. Why become a surrogate? First and foremost, to be able to give the greatest gift one human being can give to another, you know, the gift of family, something we're all so grateful for. In return, you get to build an amazing relationship with your intended parents. You'll also receive compensation, receiving up to $45,000, so that you can feel good about being able to give and help out your family financially. You'll also meet many new friends who are in the process of doing the same thing you are, just helping to create a family. I'll turn it over to Sarah now, who's going to begin with telling you a little bit about the application process.
Thanks, Jenny. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the logistical process, finding our website, getting to the application. So as you can see, when you are ready to apply to be a surrogate, we ask that you go to our website, www.circlesurrogacy.com, and you'll see the surrogate tab in the bar, the homepage, and you can go through that, and it has lots of different links to different information and kind of the educational process about becoming a surrogate. And then when you're ready to apply to become a surrogate, at the bottom you'll see in this menu that you can just hit Apply Now, and that will take you to our application. So our application is roughly about 100 questions, and it's fairly straightforward. We don't ask that you expand too much on the application. It's pretty subjective, or I'm sorry, objective information. So it's about 100 questions, and it takes about 20 minutes or so to complete. We ask for things like your biographical details, views on termination and selective reduction, medical history, including your medical history regarding your previous pregnancies, any household information, income, things like that, a little bit of information about a family and support system that you might have, because that is an important part of being a surrogate. We want to make sure that you have family and friend support, and also who you would like to be matched with, domestic, international, heterosexual couples, gay couples, people who already have families, and interracial couples are some of the types of people we work with, and so we ask on the application who you would prefer to work with. So as you see, part of the application is up here, and you're going to have a progress bar that shows you how far you've gotten through the application. And if you need to come back at a later time, the application will be saved, and you'll just be asked to kind of log back in if you need to come back and finish it at a later time. But you wouldn't have to start all over again. And then when you're all done, you'll hit Submit, and that application will come to our pre-screening team for review. And that's going to get into processing your application. The application is going to be processed in about 1 to 2 business days by our pre-screening manager. And then your application will be assigned to either Jenny or I. We are surrogate outreach coordinators, and we are experienced surrogates. So we're pretty well adept at taking care of your questions and getting you through this initial phase of the process. You're going to receive an email from us. It's called a welcome email, Welcome to Circle Surrogacy. And it's going to include paperwork, including a welcome packet. In this packet, which is about 11 pages, we're going to ask you some general questions and ask you to kind of expand on your answers about yourself and why you want to become a surrogate, just to kind of get a background of how much research you may have done already and where you stand in your knowledge about becoming a surrogate. They're also going to ask about your journey expectations, again, kind of more specifically, who you'd like to work with, and who you're open to working with as far as, like, again, international, domestic, heterosexual, gay couples, things like that. We're going to do a financial and criminal background check, so we do ask for some information so we can do that, including your Social Security number and signatures from anybody in your household who's over the age of 18. We do ask a little bit more detailed medical and obstetrical history. And then we're going to ask for medical record information. It's important that you fill these papers out as completely as you can with as much information as you can give us, because we're going to need to request your medical records for this process. So we need OB information, hospital information, so all contact information that you may have. We just ask that you submit that as much as you possibly can to make the process go a little bit faster. We're going to also ask for insurance information. So if you do have health insurance, you should have your card ready. We're going to ask for policy numbers, who the subscriber is, things like that. We're also going to be looking for your insurance booklet. And we'll get into more detail about that kind of with the emails, exactly what we're looking for. But we are going to be asking you to submit some insurance information as well. And the last page of the welcome packet is our SPAR form. And what that is, the SPAR program is a nice program that has been put together by one of the clinics that we work with. And they work exclusively with HIV-positive men. And they have a process of medically going to the sperm and kind of removing the virus. It's very technical in the medical terminology. But they do work with HIV-positive men, and we're able to get these women pregnant, and they can have babies for that. So there's more information about that, and if you choose to want to actually get more information, what we're asking you to do on that welcome package is not sign up for the program, but just if you're open to learning more about it, we ask that you check a box and sign up for us. So why should you work with Circle? Well, we're one of the most experienced agencies in the country. We've had 18 years of experience. We're a full-service agency, so we work with intended parents, we work with surrogates, we also have egg donors, all in one company, so that kind of cuts down on communication errors and things like that. Our program coordinators are lovely, and they will be with you from the time you go to get pregnant until the very end and you deliver a baby. So you always have that one person to kind of speak to while you're in that process of carrying a baby. Our compensation package is competitive and generous. We have a relationship-focused model for matching, so we're very concerned about matching intended parents with surrogates and having them have a close relationship through the process and even afterwards. It's important to us that you guys really have a bond. We have experienced surrogates and egg donors on our staff. At this time, intended parents, we have more of them than we do surrogates, so your wait time will only be about a month if we can get all your paperwork and medical records in a timely manner. Also, we have on-site social workers who are there for you throughout the screening process and while you are pregnant, so if you ever have any emotional issues or need to talk to somebody with that experience, we have those people readily available to you. Also, all of your phone calls and emails are answered by the next day. So this is our compensation package. And our base fees are based on being a first-time surrogate and whether or not we can use your insurance. So as you can see, if we cannot use your insurance, your base fee starting is going to be $22,500. If we can use your insurance, that's wonderful. So you'll get a little bit more, $27,000. And we offer $5,000 for additionally for any experienced surrogates, and that's for each journey that you have. And it does not have to be. You don't have to be an experienced carrier with Circle. You could have an independent journey. If you went with another agency and you wanted to try another agency, that's fine. And you would still get the experienced surrogate fee. Additionally, and the base fees are just what you're going to get as a surrogate, additional compensation. So on top of your $22,000 or your $27,000, you're going to get a maternity clothing allowance. There's a monthly miscellaneous fee, so that way you can take care of gas to your appointments and vitamins and things like that. And there's a caring for multiple fee. You get about another $3,000 for twins. Bed rest compensation if you need to go on bed rest, because that happens sometimes. And a C-section or invasive procedure fee as well. Also, all of your travel is covered by intended parents. This includes your hotel, your airfare, food, and they also cover child care costs should you need to hire somebody to be with your children while you are away at an embryo transfer or your medical screening. So when you are ready to apply to be a surrogate, we ask that you go to our website and click under that menu I was showing you before. and you can go ahead and fill out an application. If you have any questions, you can call Maria. She is our pre-screening manager, and she is more than happy to answer your questions or direct you to somebody who can. Okay.
So at this point, if anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer them. Again, as Jenny pointed out earlier, there's a pane to the right that says questions where you can type in anything you want to ask us. We'll just hang on the line for another 4 or 5 minutes, and just feel free to ask us those questions.
So we have a question, while pregnant, who is legally considered the mother? Immediately after the birth, who is legally considered the mother? This is a tricky question because it does get into the legal aspects of it, and I can speak to you from my perspective as a surrogate and what I have the knowledge of, but individually, it again depends on your state and things like that, so it's a little bit more complicated. But while you're pregnant, technically speaking, I don't want to say the word mother, that's a funky term in this process, but you are able to make your own decisions for yourself as far as, medically speaking and things like that. If your life is a concern or something like that, you are able to make calls for yourself. There's going to be language in your contract that's going to define that a little bit better. Immediately after the birth, it's going to depend on if they have a post-birth order or not, or a pre-birth order. The pre-birth order will be a document that assigns parenthood to the intended parent prior to you actually giving birth. So you could have a birth certificate made up before you even go into labor. In some cases, this will happen afterwards, and you would be put on the birth certificate as the mother, but you would be removed within a few days. Myself, I gave birth in Massachusetts. I signed away my rights in 5 days, and then my intended parents went through with their process. One of them was the father listed on the birth certificate, and then a couple days later, they started the process of getting the second parent on the birth certificate.
Okay, any other questions? Again, we'll hang out for a little bit longer, see if anybody wants to ask anything.
We have another question. Does the baby go on the surrogate's insurance for any period of time? That depends. We're going to have our legal department review your insurance policy prior to you being matched and moving forward. It happens very early in the process. And there's a discussion with you as to whether or not you're comfortable with this, if this is an option. If you are, it's called dependent care coverage, and if the intended parents need it, they would be able to have the option of putting the baby on your insurance for a brief period of time. This happens in situations where the baby may be premature and need significant NICU care, and you're dealing with international parents who don't have U.S. health insurance, and that could become very costly for them. And if they have the option, they're very appreciative of it. Or even in my circumstance, I gave birth, my intended parents are from London. They do not have U.S. health insurance, but they needed to stay in the country for about 8 weeks. And as we all know, newborns have several doctor's appointments in that time period, immunizations and things like that. and they were able to use my insurance to cover the cost of that. They reimbursed me for any co-pays, for any cost to me for that, but I was able to keep the baby as a dependent of mine for a period of time and allow them to use that and defray those costs.
Okay, any more questions? We'll be here just a couple more minutes. And otherwise, we'll say goodbye.
Okay, so we're going to wrap things up. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to come and listen and view our presentation. As Jenny mentioned, we're going to email this to all of you so you'll have a copy and you can review that in your free time. So thank you very much for your interest, and we hope to get applications from you all soon.